When?
Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to Talk Recovery Radio, and you're listening to us live on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM, and we're on Facebook Live now because it's that time of the show where we do our personal story where we're overcoming addiction. We were talking earlier with guest John Kazander, and he had some great advice. He said, don't be afraid of stress. And stress is just a natural way of your body telling you, hey, it's time to take a look at yourself and take a look at what you're doing and work at not getting trauma and burnt out from the stress. And I thought that's really good. Don't be afraid of the stress and just work with it and try to see what it is that you need to do and take an honest look at your life. And it's almost like in recovery doing an inventory of your life to see what's causing unmanageability. So thanks for being on the show, John. The topic was help for hidden disability, and you can catch a replay of the show on our SoundCloud. And at this time of the show, I'm going to grab the camera. And that's because we're missing a cameraman today. And we've got co-host Frances Stone, who we just caught fixing her hair.
Well, I have headphones on just like she is.
And who do we got on the show today, Frances?
I'm super excited about today's show. We're talking to Meghans Y, who also is a personal friend. She's not actually Y, but anyway, she is on Facebook just to trick people. But she is a personal friend, and she's here to talk about being a woman in recovery and being a mother in recovery and what that looks like. And so welcome to Talk Recovery, Meghans.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. So we want to talk a little bit about like where things began. So when did you first start struggling with drugs and alcohol?
Almost as soon as I started drinking. I remember like the very first time I drank, I was 14, 15, and I was at my grandma's house, and I went over to a friend's house right across the street, and they were drinking, and I drank to the point of blackout almost like immediately. They had to like carry me across the street back to my grandma's house, and like his dad dropped me on the pavement, and my mom said she could hear the sound of my head on the pavement from the doorway, and like that was my first experience like with alcohol. So it was like almost immediate that I like saw the consequences of it.
And you know what? Okay, this is me being sick and twisted, but I'm like, oh, that sounds like a really good night. Isn't that so weird? Like, why do I think that way? Like, but I do. I think like, wow, that's a great first time. Like, I know my first time drinking alcohol was something similar. Like, I got brought home by the police the first time I drank, but for some reason, it's like, oh, that was fun.
Yeah, like vomiting all over somebody's back deck and losing your shoes. Great.
What a great experience. I don't know. What is that? So did you immediately want to do it again?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't deter me.
Right?
Yeah.
And then from there, it sort of escalated into harder things. So that's at 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
When did it sort of take an ugly turn where it's like, okay, this is...
I was 16 the first time I tried harder drugs, and I'm not even sure what it was. I mean, other people around me were doing it. I wanted to try it, and there it was, right? And so I did, and by the time from 16 to 19, it was like just party, and it got really bad. And that was like the first time I remember like I came out of a blackout, and I was like at my mom's house, and I could hear her and my grandma, and my mom was crying, and my grandma came into the room to talk to me, and I was like still drunk, and I didn't know what to do. So I was like, I need help. And I was 19, and so that was my first introduction to recovery, was when I was 19. I went to treatment.
And why did you say I need help?
Because I didn't want to get in trouble.
Right.
Like, I didn't necessarily know what help was going to look like. I just was like, what can I do to get myself out of this situation? Okay, like this might make them happy right now.
Right. I need help.
So that's what I did.
Okay. And then did you experience treatment for the first time?
I experienced treatment for the first time. I went into a 90-day program, and I stayed for 70 days and left because I thought I could do it by myself. I thought I knew better, and I had a boyfriend who was also my drug dealer that I wanted to be with. So I left, and I lasted like 20 days, I think, on my own before I relapsed.
Right. And did you have the best of intentions when you left treatment that you did want to stay abstinent?
I did. I actually just recently looked back on my step work and my journals from like that time, and I was writing in it like, oh, if I just keep going to meetings, like I can do this. Like, I really thought that I could.
So why do you think that you weren't able to?
Because I disconnected myself from the community completely. Yeah, like, and I had a boyfriend that was using, so, and I moved in with him, like.
Why do you think you would make that choice?
I don't know.
It's hard to not put on the counselor hat.
I don't know why I made that choice. Like, I think that I never let go of that relationship. Like, I went into treatment and they told me, like, you should break up with him, and I'm like, that's not gonna happen. Like, he loves me. I love him. Like, he supports me, but like he didn't ever support me. So like he was using the whole time I was in treatment, and often would be high when he came to see me on the weekends. So,
and by support me, do you mean he didn't support you in your recovery?
No, he didn't support me in my recovery because he was using around me.
Right.
And even when I went home, he was still using and still selling drugs. So that doesn't look like support.
What does support look like now, today? What do you know that it looks like?
I know now that I have support when I can be open and honest about where I'm at, where I am, and like what I need. So if I feel uncomfortable in a situation and I can tell somebody that I feel uncomfortable, and at least they can be compassionate about that. Like, they don't necessarily need to change their behaviors for me, but understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah, just a valid point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard someone the other day say, today in recovery I have a choice and a voice.
I like that.
I like that too. That's the bonus of going to meetings on 6 days a week, because you hear great stuff. Would you say that that's true for you, that today that you have a choice and a voice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, and so you go to treatment. It unfortunately doesn't last because of the boyfriend and disconnecting from the community, and then what happens next?
I have a 6-year relapse.
Wow, that's a long one, Megan.
That I don't really know. I just decided I was normal. That was it. Eventually, recovery and the 12 steps, like all of it, just became like something that I did one time. That it wasn't a part of my life anymore.
It was just a bad night.
It was just like
a bad month.
This one time I went to rehab, but like whatever.
Yeah.
So I decided I was just gonna do life, and so I did, and I coasted along for quite a while, and I was working as a bartender. I became a manager. I was doing relatively okay. Then I went through a breakup. My boyfriend of 5 years, we broke up, and I went off the deep end. I stopped showing up for work because I had locked myself in my bedroom and was doing drugs and drinking by myself. And my friend came to the house and was like, you need to like get out of your room, like you need to like do something. And progressively, like I didn't have enough money. I couldn't like support myself on my own. I lost my job, a job that I'd worked really hard in. So at that point, I decided, I was living in Calgary, that I should probably go home, and home being BC. So I picked up and I got on a Greyhound bus with my skateboard and a duffel bag, and I came to Vancouver.
Okay, did everybody just get I'm just a skater girl in their head? Because I did right away. I was like, oh, you're a skater girl?
Not a very good one. Lots of injuries.
I think that's so cool. Okay, sorry to interrupt with Avril Lavigne, but anyhow.
So I came to Vancouver and I couch surfed for 2 months, lived in a hotel for a week, got a job at a restaurant again, started waitressing, became their bar manager, and then very shortly after got pregnant.
Okay. First of all, what I'm hearing you say is that you have a great work ethic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that when you decide that you want to work hard, that you can climb the ladder pretty quickly. and pretty well. So that's good.
Yeah.
That's positive.
I never really lost that.
Yeah, that's good. Yes, people that struggle with addiction are very resourceful and
Yes.
often hard workers. So
Especially when
it's
you're
great.
working at a bar.
Yeah. Yes. So then you get pregnant, and then what happens?
Well, I remember thinking, I think I'm pregnant, and not wanting to take a pregnancy test because like I just wanted to like use more. So I didn't take the pregnancy test, and I took some pills, and then I took the pregnancy test the next morning. So I was like, I don't want to know if I'm going to take these, and I was pregnant. So then it was like, okay, what am I going to do? And I decided that I was going to keep the baby, and my reasoning was maybe this will fix everything. Maybe this will make me happy. My life is going to be like better now. Like I picture this like white picket fence, and you know, like that's what this baby is going to do for my life. And it did not go that way. So the guy, my son's father, I didn't know him. We'd only been seeing each other for a couple months, and by seeing each other I mean sleeping together, so there was no like relationship there. It wasn't going to work. I picked up again and moved back to Calgary to be with the ex that I had broke up with, that the five years that I'd been with him. So went back into that situation where, you know, he was using, and throughout my pregnancy, you know, like I used, and then Zane was born May 31st, 2015, and he was 6 weeks premature, and he had to stay in the hospital for 3 weeks. And I remember like him being born, and my first like thing was like, I can drink now. I can finally drink. So the day that I left the hospital, Zane didn't leave. So I went out and got drunk because that's what I wanted to do. And I think 2 weeks after he was born, I was back into the heavy drugs, and he was still in the hospital. And as soon as I started using drugs again, I stopped going to the hospital to visit him. I missed a few visits, but in my thought process was like, well, the nurses are like taking care of him, like I don't really need to be there. So then he comes home, and things are kind of okay. I'm like drinking pretty regularly, not using hard drugs as much while he's home, but I'm isolating a lot, not really finding like balance, as we were talking about.
Yes, it's so hard to find
Yes.
in addiction, it really is.
Yes. Yeah, like so then I lost my train of thought.
So you were saying that he was born, you started drinking and doing drugs while he was in the hospital.
Right.
And thinking that the nurses were taking care of him.
Right. And then he's home now. So I move out of the place that I'm at, and I move in with my cousin and her boyfriend. And we all have the same type of lifestyle. So they also, you know, were staying up all night and using, and Zane's kind of just left at the sidelines. And there was often nights where I would like wake up in the middle of the night, come to out of a blackout, and I remember like Zane being in between the wall and my bed crying. And like I don't know how long he's been there or how long he's been crying, and we're just like in this dark room, and I'm just like completely out of it, like I can't take care of him, and you know, like smoking drugs in the bathroom and just like leaving him there. And anyways, so like I left Calgary again, and I came back home. I moved back to Merritt, where my family is. My mom and my stepdad and my grandparents all live there. And so I moved back there, and I got a place in BC Housing, and things were good again for a couple of months. They usually are right after a move. Like every time I move somewhere, I could coast along for a couple months, and then everything just like started to snowball again. And you know, I think about this like one moment where like I knew that I needed help, and I always go back to it. And I had come out of a blackout. I was on my living room floor. There was like cans all around me, and I'm like crawling on the living room floor, and I am picking up cans and trying to drink out what was like left in the cans, and there's like cigarette butts, and like it's gross, and I don't care, and I just like keep trying to like get anything that I can. And there's Zane is crying upstairs in the crib, and I had left him there the night before to go use, and I guess in my drunken mess messaged my mom and told her that I did that. So she came through the door and goes and takes Zane and is like, you can't live like this. Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm taking him. And she's like, you can come. And I'm like, I'm not coming with you. Like, I'm not coming. And then she tries to take my box of wine away from me, and I fight her for it. So it's like, in this moment, it's like, I don't care if you take my child away from me, but don't touch my alcohol. Right. Like, that's where my priorities were, right? And it took me about 3 days to like come around, and then I knew, like, I don't know what it was, like something just clicked, and maybe it was like my first experience in recovery, but I was like, I need to go back. I need help. Like, I can't live like this. Mom's right? Mom's always right.
Yeah. Mom is always right. Yeah, and I just want to ask you, like, how do you feel about sharing all this? Like, I guess it's like, you know, I think that for some people, because we're so far away from the person we were, it in some ways doesn't even feel like us. Like, when you describe that story, and I know who you are today, and I know the mother that you are to Zane today, and how hard you work, and it's just like, I can't picture that girl. Is that how you're able to share the story?
It still kind of makes me sick to my stomach when I like say it out loud. It's like, I always think like, he will never remember that, but I'll never forget it. And I just try and look at it like, if those moments didn't happen, I don't know that I ever would have made the choice to get clean. Because those were the moments that I saw the unmanageability, that I was like, I can't do this. Like, this little person needs me, right? So that's how I try and look at it.
So what does life look like for you today? So from there, you go into New Westminster, and you come into the recovery community, go to treatment. And how much time do you have now that you've been abstinent?
I take 2 years on October 2nd.
Yay!
Yeah.
That's awesome, Megan. I'm really proud of you. And yeah, so what does life look like today? What's the hopes, dreams, and goals?
Life today is amazing. I have women in my life that support me. I have Zane, he's 3 now, and his father is in his life, so we're actually working pretty well together, co-parenting. I start school September 4th into a diploma program. I work, and I sponsor 3 women in the community.
Sounds like you're really connected in the community, and even learning from what disconnection. I see that again and again and again with people. It's like connection in the community, in the 12-step community, in whatever community where you feel connected is the key to recovery.
Oh, definitely. Like, if I didn't have the connections that I do today, like, I don't know that I would stay.
Yeah. And then so we have to end, but I just wonder if there's somebody out there that's like a woman, a mother in recovery that's struggling. Is there any message that you have to her today?
I think like the biggest thing is that like you need to do what's best for yourself in order to like be there for your kids. So like I had to go to treatment for 8 months, and I had to leave Zane to do that. But today we have a life that is worth living, and he's happy, and he has his mother in his life. So I just think like do whatever you can to get yourself healthy and happy, and the rest will follow. That's a great message.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks, Giuseppe, our camera operator over there. And thank you for watching Talk Recovery Radio on 100.5 FM, Vancouver Co-op Radio. Please support Talk Recovery Radio on Vancouver Co-op Radio.